Okay, good morning, everybody, and hello and welcome to today's webinar on the power of mentoring apprentices. My name is Mark Rowe, and some of you will know I work for Union Learn, and I'm a National Apprenticeship Project Officer for Union Learn. I can see from the participants that we've already got this morning. It could be quite lively. And there's plenty of comments in the chat room. I'm looking at the number, and it looks like we've got about 75 people attending today's session. So please keep introducing yourselves and keep the chat going during the webinar, sharing your thoughts and your ideas. There will be colleagues from Union Learn also adding useful links to resources and publications throughout the session. We've got an ask a question button at the bottom of the screen. I can see it on mine. Hopefully you can see it on yours. Please feel free to add some more detailed and specific questions in here, and we will try to get around to answering them towards the end of today's session. In the background, we have our star man, Yusuf, running things as usual. And I will apologise in advance for any possible issues that may occur with audio or visual. We've had some already in the green room, but no pressure, Yusuf. It's all down to you, mate. We all know broadband capacity is still an issue with so many working from home. These things can happen, and we will, I am sure, be able to resolve them and move them on quickly. So that's housekeeping done. What we're going to do now is going to introduce our two guests, and I'm really pleased to be able to introduce these two guys to you. I would like to introduce, first of all, the content of what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll get round to Damien and Gail very shortly. So in these difficult times, trade unions are defending jobs up and down the country, and we all know that. We all have to watch the news. The power of mentoring is in enabling individuals to maintain and retain their apprenticeships is well known. Trade union reps have a key role in not only supporting mentoring initiatives, but also becoming mentors themselves. On today's webinar, hopefully you'll learn about the best way trade unions can support apprentices, and just as importantly, how you can make a difference. We are joined today by two speakers. First, we have Damien Houlihan. And Damien is a Unite Senior Shop Steward at Springfield Fuels, which is part of the Westinghouse Group. Damien was one of the first to successfully develop a program of support for apprentices. Damien and his team of reps produced a guide to apprenticeship support and mentoring some time ago now. I've been working with Damien quite a long time, to be honest. This support has run for a number of years, and the guide they produced was taken up by Union Learn, i.e. stolen by me, to aid the wider mentoring program for reps. And now next we have Dr. Gail Hebson. Gail joined Manchester Business School as a lecturer in Human Resources Management in 2005. Prior to that, she worked as a research associate in the European Work and Employment Research Centre at the Manchester Business School on a range of projects, including research funded by the Economic Social Research Council, the Future Works programme, and the European Gender Group on Social Inclusion and Employment. Gail's main interests lie in the study of gender relation and equality in the workplace. So recently doing research on the issue with apprenticeship programs in hospitality and catering. And hopefully Gail will say a little bit about that research today, which will play a key part of what we're going to discuss. So welcome, Gail. So eyes down, that took 5 minutes, so we've got plenty of time to have a good discussion. So here we go. And the first question is for Damien. And the question is, apprentices come from many diverse and varied backgrounds and face many challenges. Can you say what some of those challenges are and how we can support individuals?
Yeah, the technology is already having problems there, Mark. So I'm going to unfortunately ask you to repeat the question. I'm sorry about that. We'll start to the seminar, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. So I hope you can hear me now, Damien. Put your thumb up if you can hear me. Yeah, good. Right. So apprentices come from many diverse and varied backgrounds and face many challenges. Can you say what some of those challenges are, particularly in the role that you've got, and how we can support those individuals?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of go back in time, sort of thing, for when I was an apprentice myself, and that is going back quite some time. And the challenges that have drastically, massively changed. We only need to sort of look at the news to see, unfortunately, the bullying that goes on with young people and how easily it is. So there was always that challenge, and one of the challenges we face at Springfields is that element of some of the apprentices, the requirement to make certain they have a job is important for their family, and they play a big role in that. Again, where we sit, Springfield sits in the northwest of England. There's ourselves and probably aerospace that are the main employers, or the biggest intake of apprentices. So there's that increased pressure that is put on people, and I think that they're the roles we do now. What we find and again through the discussions with the apprentices, outside influences have a massive effect on their learning. The relationship they have in the home has a big influence with the parents, maybe grandparents, brothers and sisters, and of course, at the age where we're talking, because traditionally our apprentices we take on our school leavers at the age of 16, and everyday pressures have a massive effect on their learning, and sometimes there's that occasional difficulty from transferring their school life into their work life. Understanding the roles are very, very different. I hope that sort of answers some of the questions there, Mark, for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Damien. And can you just give us a little indication of some of the things you've done to help that work that through?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, probably I was trying to think of how long we've been running the mentoring scheme at Springfields, and I think it's somewhere around 7 or 8 years we've been doing this now. And what we try and do, we've been lucky enough to have a network of shop stewards large enough to be able to mentor apprentices on a one-to-one basis. So once they've done the training, what we try and do is pair them up for the period of their apprenticeship, and also for the first 6 months when they finish their apprenticeship, because we recognise that it's another time of a great change. All of a sudden, there's more responsibility put on people. You can imagine finishing as the apprentice on the Friday, coming back onto the factory on the Monday, and all of a sudden you feel you've got this weight of responsibility on your shoulders. And of course, the wages are quite different as well. So that brings in the challenges. So again, what we're trying to do is make certain we sit down with the apprentices as well. And sometimes, you know, we try and do that in as much relaxed atmosphere as possible. One of the things I'll share with you now is our mentoring cards, which we developed, because again, we sit down, or we try and encourage the sessions to take place once a month. And unfortunately, I'm not being clever enough with technology, so I'm going to point this towards the camera and hopefully people can pick this up. But a pack of cards there, again, totally developed by the apprentices themselves. We do have a very good system on site with safety committees, and the apprentices probably run the best one. I mean, we run a competition and they've won it for the last 2 years. And basically, there are a set of questions. There's 4 different subjects: education, workplace safety, and personal life. And all these are cards that try and stimulate some conversation between people and helps. And what it does, it builds that relationship between the apprentice and the mentor. And that's a really key point in what we do. When we do the training, we do actually ask people to sign a contract of confidentiality, because we realize, you know, workplaces are great for rumors. And what we don't want to do is people to then start talking about the conversation. So there is a level of confidentiality, and it builds up that trust. And definitely what we have seen on the factory is a reduction of the involvement of the apprentice with maybe the training manager or HR. Because in the majority of the times when people or the apprentice maybe find themselves in a little bit of bother, and again, that could be through to influences outside, if they'd had somebody to talk to, the majority of these issues can be dealt with the help from either the company, but also from the trade unions as well. So the cards that have worked really, really well. And again, I know, shared them with yourself, Mark. I've shared them with Unite, and within our sector, the energy and utilities, we've adopted these. And our intention was this year was to roll them out within our sector as well. But obviously, events have overtaken us, unfortunately.
And I'm sure we can expand a little bit on the cards later down track in the webinar. So, Gail, I have the similar question to you, to be honest. Can you also say what some of those challenges are for people who are taking up apprenticeships, and how do we support those individuals from your research point of view and some of the work you've been doing at the uni?
Thank you. I mean, it's really interesting to hear Damien's perspective on it, because there are lots of similar themes, but our apprentices that we looked at in the university, the catering and hospitality apprenticeships, crucially are what's known in apprenticeship talk as converts. That is, they work in the workplace anyway, and crucially the apprenticeship levy pushed the university to try and encourage people to take up apprenticeships even when they'd worked there a long time, so they weren't young and new. So that idea of an apprentice being, young and new didn't translate onto our research. But in terms of the barriers they experienced and some of the challenges, they do very much relate to issues to do with work and home life and juggling the demands of an apprenticeship with what's going on at home. A lot of our catering and hospitality apprentices, actually, they cared for either children or elderly parents. And this model of the apprenticeship that was put onto them didn't really match their working lives, really, and their responsibilities at home. So I think that was one of the key challenges. A lot of apprentices are now older, so that was definitely one of the key challenges we found. I think some of the other challenges relate to confidence and a lack of possibly functional skills in terms of maths, English and IT. A lot of people we spoke with, they had left education very early and didn't have any qualifications. So this was a big impetus for them to do the apprenticeship. This is why they were excited about doing it. But they also needed a lot of support because of that. So that was one of a really key challenge for them. And that's where some of the mentoring issues would come in. I think, I suppose what I should say, I don't know if it's too early to say this, is what we found was the absence of mentors was the key theme in our research, something that came up time and time again, they didn't have a mentor. You know, it didn't have an active mentor. And one of the big findings of our research is how important that is for apprentices, really, to have that person who's not their line manager, who's not their HR manager, who they can trust and be very open with about any anxieties they have. So that was, you know, so it does map on a little bit to what Damien says, even though the cohort of apprentices are very different. So, yes, that's what I think one of the key issues, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and Gail, in my experience, what I found is I go to different employers all over the country, and when they ask about mentoring programs, 9 times out of 10, the senior manager or whoever I'm seeing, CEO or whatever, will say to me, "Oh, we've got mentors here. It's all the frontline managers." And I think, Damien, when we come back to you in a little while, we'll be able to see the difference between your frontline manager being your mentor and your trade union rep being your mentor. And I think there's a massive difference in that, because at the end of the day, you're not going to tell your manager that you're struggling with your maths or whatever it is you're struggling with. So we'll maybe pick that up as we go through. So in terms of what we're going to do now is going to just stay with Gail now. In your recent research, you suggested a list of issues for managers and staff to consider and discuss before individuals commit to an apprenticeship. What are the benefits of that process and how does it actually work? And I think you might have some slides on this that we can hopefully share with everybody.
I do, if this works, if the technology works. Is that looking like it's working? Let me see. Does that work? No, not yet.
No, there's nothing on screen yet, Gail.
Right.
Shall I share it from my end?
Let me see. I'll give it one more go.
Yep, it's working
Can
now.
you see that? Yeah, yeah. I'll skip a couple of these and maybe move to these sort of challenges. Is that best, Mark, or what would be best?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of what I will say is crucially for the research, it was longitudinal. So we managed to follow people across the time of their apprenticeship, which is really important because when they first start off, their feelings and experiences are obviously very different as it goes along. And I suppose just picking up to what's been mentioned already, this idea of giving a voice to apprentices, and that's what we found was one of the key things that was missing in our research. So in terms of the impact of the research, at the end of the 2-year period, we had lots of focus groups with a lot of the catering hospitality staff. There they are, the lovely staff there. And what I've just put here is what was really interesting is what came up time and time again. We had lots of post-it notes and lots of discussions, and it keep coming up was there was no mentor on site. There was nobody they could trust that they could go to. They were having difficulties, but they didn't want to tell their manager about these difficulties. So in terms of we didn't expect this, but a lot of the session ended up looking at mentors and what they could do and how they could help. And here's some of the things we wrote down using their words. I can read a couple of these out, but introduce yourself to the people you're mentoring. Don't take something on you don't know about. They were very skeptical. There were a couple of people who were identified as mentors, but they were frontline managers, and they didn't really accept them as mentors, as being on their side. And also they wanted the mentors to have more practical skills of getting onto IT systems and what times would they be available. Really basic stuff that could have really shaped their experience of the apprenticeship. and ways of communicating. Crucially, they wanted the mentor to be an advocate for them, really, in terms of advocating their voice and their concerns to frontline managers. So the difference between a frontline manager and a mentor became really obvious through these sessions. So that finally led to something that we've developed, and I'd love to get anybody's views on this. And I've got details on this, is something called the Apprentice Support Wheel App for mentors. And this is the idea that mentors would sit down with their apprentice and go through these different areas of challenges that we identified in the research. Some are quite basic in terms of finding study space and finding time, and others about possibilities of difficulties with maths, English, IT. And some of them, they were the more sort of negative, the challenges, and then some of the more sort of motivating factors about doing it, getting career opportunities and developing job skills and developing functional skills. So these were the big themes of the research. So the idea is the mentor would sit down, and there's a list of questions when you click on each segment, and you identify a set of priorities and tasks that you want to look at, and that maybe the mentor could approach the line manager with to help the apprentice. And this gets emailed or texted to you, so you've got a record of what you've discussed. And crucially, I suppose I've just identified some of the key aims of this, is it prompts mentors to keep in touch regularly with apprentices. So, you know, little prompts come up on the phone, have you been in touch with your apprentice? It identifies what the key areas of concern are for that particular apprentice, because they're so different. Those who have childcare responsibilities, or those who have elderly parents who they're caring for, some of their issues about finding the time and the energy to do the work that was involved were very different to some of the younger apprentices who wanted to really try and push their careers forward. So we hope this sort of app would try and be the start of a mentor being a mechanism, for a voice mechanism for apprentices. So, and just finally, you know, if you want to, I'm happy to talk more about it, but this is where you'll find more information, and there's a link to it, and you can download it for free. So in a way, it's a little bit better like the cards that Damien mentioned, but it's more because of our catering staff all being split across the university and split across different sites. It's often hard for them to come together. So we've used this sort of app format, and we're trialing it really to see how people find it, and hopefully it will be relevant beyond hospitality and catering. So it'd be great if anybody wants to give it a go. But yeah, that's a summary of what we found, and one of the key outputs we had was relating to mentors. So shall I just?
Yeah. Thanks very much, Gail. That was impressive, to be honest. I've had a look at the app myself, and I think it was well worth a look at if you're a rep. And hopefully, what we'll do is we'll share the slides with everybody, but equally we'll get a link up there somewhere on our website about how to access the app as well. So that's great. Thanks, Gail. So Damien, big question for you now is trade unions also discuss issues with apprentices, and I know from speaking with you on a number of occasions that you put together a process in place for not only obtaining mentors through volunteers, but also what that process looks like, and some of the do's and don'ts, if you like. So can you just talk us through your process, how it works with particularly the young apprentices entering the workplace?
Yeah. So what we've done, and again, very much we've kept control. I say, you know, the trade unions on site, unite. We have within our group managed to. We're the guys that run the actual mentoring scheme. As far as the company, because obviously there's a massive benefit for the company through having mentoring, in as much as, you know, it helps their employees It gives them someone to talk to, the issues they have. It could lead to issues further down the line are dealt with very, very shortly. So there is a massive benefit. So the company recognised that, Springfield's management recognised that. So the company's involvement basically goes as far as the commitment that they're supporting the mentoring scheme. They do also give us a little bit of, obviously, the time off, not just to meet with the apprentices, but to sort of like those icebreakers. Again, we've got to, our apprentices traditionally have been 16-year-olds over the last 4 or 5 years. We've started to introduce degree apprentices, so we're bringing people in who've got A levels, and so gets a little bit longer. Our mentors could be of any age, and I'll put myself in that in the 50s, and there we are. And how do you build that relationship sometime? So the icebreaker with the young apprentices coming on, how we get to sort of know each other is that we go 10-pin bowling. Before any mentoring starts, we go down to the local bowling alley. We have half a day of bowling. We create a little bit of competition, and then that just creates that ability then to your mentor, the apprentice, and helps with the discussions that are taking place. But it has been really important for us to keep control of who is the actual mentor, because of those discussions that could take place. You mentioned there, Mark, about is the apprentice going to then start talking about his struggles, possibly, or their struggles with education or at college, and of course the outside influence as well, which we know full well. Are they going to open up completely to a manager? So because of that, I don't think that would work. So what we've done is we've made certain it's shop stewards, and again, one of the reasons behind that, and I'm not saying others aren't capable of doing that, is that shop stewards are volunteers to start off with. They're putting themselves forward, and they're putting themselves forward there for a reason, is because they want to make their workplace a safer place, and they want to make certain everyone is treated fairly. So there must be something within the psyche of the shop steward that says, okay, then yeah, ideal person for being a mentor. So that's what we've done. I have opened it up in the past just to see, and I think it was fair to say you could look at some people, it's a nice tick on a CV. This is what they want, and I didn't believe that would really benefit the apprentice at all. So we have kept control of it, and again, even with the shop stewards, not all of them take on the role. Some of them say they would find it quite difficult, but again, the key element is that element of trust. So even all the areas where the apprentices are working, there is a shop steward. So there is somebody there that they've been able to talk to. That's what we've always had. But within the training centre and the training we give at Springfields, those apprentices will move around into different departments. So it's difficult for them to maybe build up a long-term relationship with an individual that they feel they can go and talk to on any matter at all. So this is a reason why when we have the mentor and the mentee, we try and run it for the whole of their apprenticeship. And like I said, and then maybe for the first 6 months when they come out of the time as well, because it allows them to do that. And again, quite strange, but we basically turn around and ask the shop steward to sign a contract to say they will keep that confidentiality. And if they were to break that, basically, we'd ask them to resign as a rep. What we don't want to be doing is going as the trade union on site is then reporting them to HR and then find themselves on disciplinary. So it's self-managed, and it's worked very, very well. It's there's no doubt about it. It is something that has to adapt, and even now, with as our workforce has decreased, strangely enough, our apprentice intake has increased, and that creates a few issues, but nothing that can't be dealt with, I don't think.
Great, that's fantastic, fantastic answer to the question, and I think it just goes to the whole heart of what we're trying to talk about here, is that if trade unions have got control of a mentoring program, then where we can be is we can be in a really strong position to support those individuals for whatever reason or concern that they may have, and hopefully keep them in work, but also work through that apprenticeship, get to the end of it, and then move into whatever career that they've chosen. So I'm going to ask you both a question now. I'm going to go to Gail first, and then I'll go to Damien second, just to give Damien a quick swig of his tea. So the question is around the people who are doing the mentoring. So do you think it's important that those individuals get some specific training in that role and how to utilize that role? And I'll go to you first, Gail.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think. I mean, it was interesting because it was there were 2 mentors in our case study, but they didn't know, they didn't have any time. They were line managers as well, and they didn't have any time to actually do this role. They weren't given any training. And that did lead to lots of anxiety from the apprentices and lots of dropout, crucially. You know, the retention wasn't great. The mentors, I'm sure, would have made a real difference there in terms of that. So I think it's training and it's time, and it's actually not putting it on top of a job. It's making sure that they're given time within their role to do that. Because I think if you put it on top of an existing role, it just won't be done to the level that it's needed to be done at, and in the seriousness, really. In the commitment, and also the benefits for both the mentor and the apprentice. It could really, I ended up as the researcher being a little bit sort of in a support role, and it's really quite rewarding to do that. But, you know, doing that on top of a job is hard. So I think one of the things I would say, I'm not an expert in specific training of mentors and what particular skills they need. But in terms of job design, which is, I suppose, what I teach on, it's important that you don't just add something on top of an existing role. So that actually gets put in terms of a job responsibility. Now, I don't know how that would sit in terms of whether it's voluntary or not. And I suppose, but if it can be used as a way to develop somebody's own career, if they're the mentor. And I know what Damien was saying about the worry that people just use it to tick something on their CV, to say that, oh, I'm a mentor, I'm doing it to develop myself, and then maybe they haven't got the apprentices' interests at heart. So obviously I know you've got to balance that. But I think crucially, to be realistic about it, there's got to be something in it for both the mentor and the apprentice. In my experience of a university catering department that was getting downsized constantly, you know, they were cutting staff, everyone was overwhelmed with work. And in that context, people don't put themselves forward for additional responsibilities. So I think that's my big message there. If there's a way they could, and crucially, that it does help retain apprentices. It's good for the business in the long run anyway. And don't just add it on to existing jobs. Recognise it as a really important role to retain and train staff. That's the key, the sort of message from our research anyway. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gail. So similar question to yourself, Damien, in terms of the training. I know you actually helped develop the training that TU Education gave to your guys. So can you just say a little bit about that and how it works and the benefits of it?
Yeah. Training plays a massive part because, again, it's understanding what actually a mentor is. Again, traditionally, we mentioned, it's already been mentioned today that, we in businesses, we have mentors, and we have a graduate program where we have senior engineers will mentor the graduates that come in. And that's been there for long before we developed this scheme we've got currently. But that was always about mentoring them within their job. How do they sort of complete the tasks that they've been given, and how do they develop themselves? When the mentoring that we provide looks more at the welfare. So it's understanding through the training of actually what the role of a mentor is. We're not counsellors. We're not, we're certainly not going into that element. We're not there to fix the problems for the apprentices, but what we'll try and do is work with them to try and help them go through. And that's all part of the training. And again, there's an element as well of safeguarding. It plays a key part in understanding what your role is with a mentor. and I guess again, so one of the other things we talk about in our training is making certain you are not putting yourself in any form of danger, yourself or the apprentice. So again, I know we're very, very fortunate from where we work. We have, a couple of Costa coffee canteens on the factory and what have you. And another thing I can show up to the screen, we sort of have these sort of prepaid cards there that, the union pays for a coffee every time they meet. And maybe that's that little thing that is what's in it for me is, well, actually, what I can do every week, I'll go get myself a free coffee. That pays for the apprentice and also for the mentor as well. And it's those little things that help, maybe minor thing, but it also helps to keep the scheme running along. And again, one of the other key elements of, again, we have the company support. And again, most shop stewards will recognise the challenges of being actually taking time out of your day-to-day job, possibly to then go and do your role as a union rep. So again, the training package we developed on the front of that has a commitment from our managing director that says how they support the mentoring. So it's a great thing to waive, when you're sort of being questioned, why are you going off now? It's going to take you an hour the time of having a meeting with the apprentices and what have you. All we do is waive the sort of commitment from our managing director and says, no, he's supporting me. So if you've got problems, go and have a word with him, sort of thing. So it has played, the training in this, it's vital. I believe, we really do need to make certain, and that training, I know you do this through the various TUC education departments, is actually moulding it to how your workplace may work, how you can involve yourself with the apprentices as well. It's the feedback we get from those that have done the training and have done the mentoring is probably one of the best roles they do through their involvement with the union. I myself, as a convener for 10, 11 years sort of thing, the best role I carry out is my involvement with the apprentices, mainly because I don't get quite as much trouble as everybody else.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, thanks for that, Damien. And just to emphasise that, I'm hoping that we've got 80 plus people on today. And I'm hoping that every one of them will go on Union Learn website and look at the e-notes on mentoring, and just to get a flavour of what you could actually do, what it's about, but also equally, you can take that forward then into a TU education mentoring course and just develop your skills that way. So thanks for the fantastic answers we've had so far. Now I'm gonna skip from questions that I had written down previous to meeting, and I'm going to go to ask a question which has bobbed up, and the question now is, and it's from a guy called Martin Robson. You two probably don't know, and the question is, how would you initiate dialogue with the employer with a view to them allowing trade unions to get more involved with the apprenticeship process, considering they are not yet members? So really it's about that sort of dialogue between the trade union and the employer about how we can engage with apprentices and how we can support them, really. Now I'm going to give Gail a little couple of seconds to think about that, because I'm pretty sure Damien probably knows the answer. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that, Gail, on the basis that you can look at it from an HR point of view, I guess. So we'll chuck that at Damien first and see how we go.
Yeah, thanks. So the first thing we do within the induction at Springfield is, the 2 weeks where apprentices are swamped with information. I sit down, I take a couple of hours with them, talk to them about what trade unions are, because for a lot of them it may be the first conversation they've ever had. Sometimes it's still surprising when you ask an apprentice or when you see a group of apprentices asking them, do they know what a trade union is? And usually the answer is something about Arthur Scargill, because that's what they heard the parents talk about years ago, sort of thing. So it's still there. But again, so, you know, I would make certain we talk to the apprentices at an early stage, and it is the involvement within their training. I said, you know, because we're a place of further education, we have an apprentice committee, basically a group of governors, which I chair that. So again, it's that union involvement within their training. And I think it does. And again, I can't give you the facts, maybe, but they're making certain that the retention of apprentices by being able to discuss with the trade unions is vitally important. I mean, whilst there's an apprentice levy there, you know, companies are investing in apprentices and they want to see that benefit. They don't want to train somebody up only to lose them, whether it's part of the way through their apprenticeship or when they actually finish their apprenticeship time. So, you know, we've had a massive influence on the training schemes within Springfields. I said we've, you know, 70 years of taking apprentices on. 33% roughly of the workforce is ex-apprentice. Our managing directors are all ex-apprentices, and it's that relationship we've managed to bring in. And I think, you know, again, giving the apprentices the ability to talk to somebody outside of management, where they can raise their concerns with the full comfort, is vitally important. That they can talk about issues that maybe affect them that they know isn't going to get them into any sort of trouble at all. That plays a key role in the retention of apprentices, and I think that's going to be the benefit for them. And I think, you know, whether it's Springfields or whether it's other companies which will be running similar schemes and similar involvement, I think are great examples, and when we should be used.
That's a great answer. So, Gail, over to you in the sense that I think Damien alluded it there, and you spoke about it as well, that the fact that many employers are driven by the levy now to find apprentices, but there needs to be that little dialogue between the trade unions and the employer about how we can best support these guys. So.
I mean, Mark, when we first met, it was, we talked about this apprenticeship levy, because I must admit a lot of the catering staff felt nervous, possibly even forced onto this apprenticeship scheme. You know, they'd worked in the university for a long time. And actually, at the end of the apprenticeship, they're pleased they've done it. But at the beginning, there was a lot of nerves and they needed that support. And there was a lot of dropout about 6 months, 8 months into the process. So I'd say the retention issue is key, and that's a key way that you can argue with employers that mentors are needed. Trade unions might be a way to fulfil that mentor role. I would also say one of the key themes that you can tap into in terms of an employer business cases are around social responsibility and equalities and diversity. Because what we found is actually, and I know it's hospitality and catering, it was a very female-dominated apprenticeship programme. A lot of them were women, older women, with lots of care responsibilities. And crucially, what we were finding was a lot of this tapped into the equalities agenda, and a lot of organisations are very behind that equalities agenda and want to look like they're very proactive. So there might be something there to make some connections with the equalities agenda there, I would argue, and the social responsibility agenda. And if you can use that mentoring scheme as part of being a socially responsible employer, part of actually advocating equalities and diversity, and make a way to mainstream those sorts of issues through this training, I think that could be a way forward. It's a language that a lot of employers like using. A lot of employers sell themselves on the basis of that sort of social responsibility and their commitment to equalities and diversity, and they're doing great work on that. But that work seems to be separate from this apprenticeship programme, and it really jarred with me how a lot of the issues that I was finding were actually equalities issues. And yet there was the trade union weren't tapping into that as well. So I wonder if that's one way as well as the retention issue. One way to actually argue the case for this mentoring programme has been a socially responsible employer advocating equalities through this apprenticeship programme. That would be one suggestion, one alternative way to do it. Mark's frozen, I think.
Apologies, we seem to have lost Mark for a moment. Yep, he's just reconnecting at the moment, so we'll give him a second.
Guess what? Anybody know any jokes? Sing a song? Anyone? No?
Social responsibility agenda, part of the discourse around apprenticeships where you are, or
Sorry, I didn't hear the start of your question there. Yeah, sorry about that.
oh, sorry.
You can tell we're getting towards that 3/4 of the way through the
Yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering if that sort of discourse of social responsibilities and equalities and diversity is sort of used in any of the arguments to support apprentices.
It is something we've had a lot of conversation on, because the apprentice recruitment at Springfield doesn't match the area we sit in. We sit in between Preston and Blackpool. And again, it's not reflective. So it is something over the last probably 18 months we are starting to ask an awful lot of questions on. The apprenticeship is our main route of recruitment.
So it's
again, through the equalities and diversity, even the nuclear industry which I sit in is setting challenges. And if apprentice recruitment is going to play a key part in that, unfortunately, it's going to take quite a long period of time if looking at that is our recruitment is only apprentices. But it's a challenge we recognise, and I think it does play a key role in, again, supporting apprentices and making certain there is recruitment there.
Okay, I think I'm back. Well, the computer just decided to pack in on me, and I'm thinking, oh, what's happened? I'm glad that we've been able to carry on the conversations without me, which proves really that we could have done this without me anyway, probably. So, I mean, I think what we've covered today has been excellent, really, and I hope it's give everybody out there who's watching a good insight into some of the issues around apprenticeships, some of the issues around how we go about supporting everybody, and how we can actually make that apprenticeship a really quality apprenticeship. And at the end of the day, I know Union Learner are keen to ensure that every apprenticeship is a quality apprenticeship, and we can only do that with things like Gail's research and Damien's dedication to bring those sort of issues to the fore, so that we can A, understand them, and B, do something about it. And we are in a unique position where we can actually do something about it. And everybody who's on the webinar today, I'm sure you'll come across apprenticeships in the things that you do, and you'll be able to engage with those individuals, engage with the employers, engage with your own union and even other unions if you're on a joint site, and just pull that all together and support everybody. So before I go to the final bit, I'm just conscious of the time, actually. I mean, we have got some time left. If anyone wants to ask any more questions, that'd be great. I'm just thinking if we want to just have some final comments, or did you do final comments when I wasn't here? Go on,
No,
Dave.
yeah, I think the other role we play within the unions, within the TUC, is making certain that the apprenticeships are meaningful. We saw sort of 10 years ago our recruitment numbers, those that are applying for jobs, start to decrease. And I think there was a misunderstanding of what actually an apprenticeship is. And what we did see was certain employers abusing the fact of calling people apprentices just to keep people's wages low. So we do play a key role in making certain, like I said, that the apprenticeships are meaningful, that there is correct training for the role they're carrying out, and also to make certain that there's employment at the end of that apprenticeship. Well, of course, what we don't want to see is just a rolling group of apprentices that are used, again, for cheap labour to make certain. So again, it's another role the unions need to make certain, and that's why our involvement with apprenticeships is so vitally important. And one final plug as well, and I don't know if we've touched on this, but again, maybe we could share this, Mark, is an app that's been developed within the Hazards group at Manchester there of training safe, which is a great app just to have on your phone. Gives a lots of information about issues that are facing young people in work.
Yeah, thanks for that, Damien. I mean, just on that app, we were on the steering committee that looked after that particular project. So that app is out there, and what I'll do is I'll make sure that the link to that particular app as well is also on our website, so that people can access that. So, Gail, do you want to have a little final?
Yeah. And one last reflection, just to pick up on what Damien said, I think that's so important in terms of meaningful apprenticeships. And obviously there's a big debate about, because what we had were people who'd been in the workplace a long time who were then asked to do an apprenticeship. And crucially, how has that got to, you've got to make it be beyond accreditation for skills they've already got, and crucially make it more than that in terms of, so they are learning new skills. And there's a lot of frustration around that when they feel like they're not. So again, I think that's really a really important point about meaningful apprenticeships, and mentors are going to be key in terms of that, making sure that what you're learning is actually meaningful in developing you, rather than just accrediting what you've already got, which is obviously important for people who haven't got their accreditation, but I think it also needs to be a mix. So that was particularly the case in our catering and hospitality sort of workplaces. So I definitely agree with that. I think it's a nice theme of meaningful apprenticeships and mentoring. They're very much connected.
Yeah, and that's where we want to go. I mean, we understand fully that some people are coming new to the workplace and they've never had that experience of work, and they need certain support in certain way. And then you've got the people who are already in the workplace who maybe change career, or the management decide that an apprenticeship would upskill the workforce. So we have to be aware of the slight differences there in demand, really, from those individuals. And I think there's another little batch of people as well, the ones who are where the manager goes, "You're on an apprenticeship next week," and you go, "What? Why me?" So there's a big issue about that, and I think that's where trade unions can play an important part in ensuring that the mix of apprenticeships is right for that organisation, and the skill sets that are needed. That we don't force, for example, someone onto a level 3 apprenticeship when they've got functional skills needs. and the apprenticeship standard is far too high for their particular educational need, and we might have to do some pre-work with them to get them from where they are now to being ready to do that apprenticeship. So there's lots of things for us to consider, and I know it's not easy, and every workplace is different. But certainly, I think if we take on the best practice that we've heard today, and some of the ideas we've heard today, I think we go quite far to solving some of those issues. So just conscious of time now, unless anyone's got an absolute burning question that they'd like to pose. I'm amazed actually that we've all been very quiet and everyone's just listening and taking it in, I think. And in some ways that's really good. Otherwise it's a bit worrying. But we'll go with it. We'll go with it. So what I'd like to say now is a big thank you to our speakers this morning. It's great to see you both in lockdown. And I don't know if I've got kicked out there, but hopefully you can still hear me. So a big thank you to both of you taking part today. And like I say, it's good to see you both. I mean, you've grown a massive beard since last time I saw you, man. And I'm
as most people during lockdown took the advantage of maybe learning a language or maybe a musical instrument. I just decided to be lazy and not bother shaving.
Brilliant. So taking time out from you busy days is fantastic, and I'd just like to thank all the people who've been online today for taking time out from their busy day as well to join today's webinar. It's very much appreciated, and we hope the session was useful. We will be adding a session to our YouTube channel. This is a plug from our sponsor, along with all the useful resources and links, including a PowerPoint we've seen from Gail today. So on that note, I'll just say thanks to everybody. Louise has just put a note up there. There's I think there's a webinar on the 19th of November coming up on adult learning and training trends. And then there's another one about higher learning. We've got loads of events coming up, and hopefully people can get on those and see what Union Learn have to offer. And if there's anyone out there who's not signed a petition to save Union Learn, that'd be great if we could do that as well, because as you all know, we're slightly under threat from our sponsor, the Department of Education. We won't go into that, and hopefully you will maybe cut off that from the end of the video. But thanks again for both of you for taking part, and thanks to all the people who joined in today. I thought it was a great webinar, really enjoyed it, and we'll see you all soon. Okay, goodbye for now.